Just waiting for it to come up on the screen. I think some people can hear us now.
Yeah, excellent.
Okay, there we go. I noticed on the last video, well, welcome everybody to Friday, TGIF for sure. I noticed on the video last time I always watch these back to kind of see where we can improve and whatnot. I noticed like I've got the new setup here and I have 3 screens. Oh, sorry. Hang on one sec. I gotta turn the video off. One sec. This will be that same issue. Okay. That I look like I'm looking all around the place like I'm nervous or something. I actually have 3 screens going with like the live feed and the comments and everything like that. So I'm just trying to manage everything at the same time. So uh, I'm not really that distracted. But anyway, yeah, TGIF. Glad that it's Friday. It's been a busy week, Ben, as it typically is.
Yep.
We're gonna get through this. I think actually we have some good content today.
Yeah.
So I'm just gonna, as I normally do, just gonna go through a few housekeeping things. RSP season. We're in the month here of February, so it ends at the end of this month. Is that
For
right?
sure. March
Okay.
1st, March 1st this year. Yep.
March 1st this year.
Yep.
Okay, so I've done a ton of contributions for people, both RSP and TFSA, but certainly if you want to do that, shoot me an email or give me a call. Or if you're not sure what to do, then you know, reach out to Ben and he'll give you some advice on that.
Yeah. So not even, I guess, from a what to do with it, but even like how much tax you paid, how much should you put in. Had a couple good conversations this week about that with people. They paid this much tax last year. Should they go up to the max? Should they wait? So
Yeah.
definitely, if you want to have those conversations, just book something.
Yeah, that's definitely one for Ben. By the way, I've had a few people that have reached out to me. I'd feel more comfortable if you talk to Ben about that. So, okay. So the other thing is, some people like most of the transition is done now from CIBC. If there are still some people that have reached out and said, hey, I can still see some money on my online at CIBC if you still have access to that. If you do have that, we're kind of at the point where if you could just take a screenshot of that or even a picture on your phone or whatever and send that to us, it really helps us when we send it to transfers with that inquiry to sweep the account, because then they have something to refer to, right? They're like, oh, this is the exact amount that they're seeing. And then they request that from CIBC. So that's really helpful if you can do that. Thanks to Anne, our trusted mentor team member, for that advice. The other thing is the more of the online setups. If you can't, or if you're having any trouble seeing any of your accounts online, or you have any questions about that, it's been a bit of a painful process, but we feel like we have a better handle on it after this week. We got some answers, and we pretty much have a good handle on that now.
So I just let me throw a little bit into that before we jump into the next part. The portal is actually quite good and robust, and so I've taken a bunch of clients through it this week. You can get a good view of the asset mix. You can drill down to the individual holdings. There's real-time updates on how the portfolio is doing, which stocks are doing better than others, like just kind of that highlights in the transactions tab. You can see the individual trades that I made throughout the week. So the portal's robust and good once you get into it. So certainly, if you do want any help in navigating it or have any questions along there too. So we've had some clients ask about paper statements versus electronic. Once you're in there too, it's super easy. If you want to change and get paper, you click a couple tabs, save, and it changes to paper. So definitely keep us in the loop if you want to help with any of those things.
Yeah, I did notice that it doesn't give you the option to click paper for the tax forms.
Right.
Did you notice that too?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So tax forms you have to get online,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So yeah.
But if anyone has any issues with the tax forms too, they can't pull them down themselves too. We can obviously rip it down for them too.
Yeah, we can we
Yeah.
can take that and email it to you directly. You just can't get it by paper for whatever reason. I'm not sure why, but you can't.
Yep.
So,
Yep.
okay. And of course, any other questions like that, any other housekeeping things, certainly email me, scott.goodfellow@nbc.ca. Okay. Always happy to help. If we don't know, we always find out for you. All right. Well, let's get into the real stuff here. Ben, what have you been doing all week? Eh? What's been good?
Yeah.
Let's start with what's been good.
What's been good? Well, crypto continues to be good. And so I think that somebody described it pretty well to me this week when they said, you you were early on the decisions to introduce Bitcoin into portfolio. And now I said I'm looking at companies that are building infrastructure around it. So they kind of described it as, you'd bought the gold and now you're looking at the miners. I'd say I bought the gold and kind of looking at the infrastructure players. So I've started to look at some of those names that I'd mentioned before, like Galaxy Digital is up 25% today. That's Mike Novogratz. The overstock.com, which I don't know if we talked about before because yeah, I only bought it this week across the board, and so Overstock is an interesting business. I mean, they've kind of been like a small type of online, similar to Amazon, where they have like they sell goods where you want to buy a couch or chair or lamp or something like that. You can buy that there, but they were the first online source to take crypto as payment to buy things. So they built a unique technology platform on the back end. So they got the combination of the retail, which is what you want to own at this point of the cycle, and they got the technology piece to it. So that's moved up about 20% since we bought earlier this week. I think they got an interesting business model and something that continues to work. So those two have worked pretty well, and so those have been winners this week. I mean, it's been interesting week from a market perspective, but those I'd say have been probably the two big winners as I look across the portfolio.
That's great. Anything we talked about this morning is like we don't like to talk about the losers, but anything that you're looking at that you're concerned with right now in the portfolio?
Yeah, so at this point of the cycle, you don't really want to have too much overexposure to treasuries, Canadian or U.S. treasuries, because if yields start to move up a little bit, there's some technical breakpoints. If we get that technical breakpoint, then you could have some pressure on treasuries and some pressure on gold and gold companies. So as I think about those two things, like those have been the underperformers year to date. So when we talked about this too, as one of these things is you do want some kind of counterbalances. So I'm not saying we go down to zero treasury weighting. We just think about what we do with it. And so as I, made a couple of changes here into the close, a couple of companies that I bought, Sally Beauties, which is one that has been on the watch list. You kind of want to own that commercial or consumer discretionary at this point. Stock was down 7% into the close here, so took some of that out of treasuries into that company. I also bought a company called Experience Investment Corp. It's a SPAC that's being converted to Blade. And Blade is a helicopter company that offers a commuting service and things like that. So, as I've been kind of shifting around portfolios, it's been reducing exposure to treasuries and adding to things that you want to own at this part of the cycle, which is consumer discretionary, but not go to zero because you do need that counterbalance. If we get a spike in volatility, then you're going to get some US dollar strength, you're going to get treasury strength. And so you need a little bit of the counterbalance. It's a matter of finding that right mix.
Right. Would you talk about bonds right there? Because I know we were
Yeah,
talking
sure.
about
Yeah,
bonds
we
here.
talk
Yeah.
about treasuries.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
So,
yeah. So
uh, okay. Just one thing I forgot to mention too is if you want to ask a question, I know a couple people were having a problem asking questions last week, but you should be able to put it in the online chat there. Just it's either to the right of your screen or just below. So give that a go if you want to ask a question. Okay. What else in the news? You want to talk about a couple things in the news? I know we mentioned on the podcast. We recorded a podcast on Thursday night, so last night. It'll come out Monday. I have it scheduled. It's a new thing I scheduled them now to come out Sunday night. So we don't want to give all that away, but obviously a couple of key things in the news. There's been a lot about GameStop and the short squeeze. We mentioned we mentioned that on the podcast. Kind of go in depth about that. That looks like it's all but over. Would you say is that the right word? Over?
Yeah, I would think so. I mean, it's been like GameStop seems like it's finding a level here, maybe in the somewhere in the mid 40s to mid 60s.
Mhm.
Seems like it's balancing out here about now. There's a lot of hedge funds that made money on the long side on this one, as we
Yeah.
thought and talked about. But yeah, I think money's kind of moved on from there.
Yeah.
There was not to belabor crypto, but we had MicroStrategy had a conference this week where they're one of the first institutions to put some of their reserve into Bitcoin, and so they had a conference this week where they brought in a lot of kind of third parties to talk about how that fits within portfolios. And so I think you may have seen like we'll call it hot money kind of chase into that space a little bit here, and out of any of those other kind of high risk type names.
Yeah. I noticed that this morning that Robinhood took all the restrictions off it finally. So, uh, not that it matters at this point, right?
Sure.
That's why they did it because it doesn't really matter anymore.
Yeah.
Um, okay, we also talked a little bit about. I mean, the big news this week was Jeff Bezos is stepping down from Amazon. What do you think that does to that stock and that company in general?
Yeah, so I read a lot about this, talked to a lot of people, as I'm sure you did as well. I think there's probably a mixed views on it. I think that my personal view is I always think it's challenged to transition from such an iconic leader like Bezos to somebody new. On the negative side, I think the next person who's come in is gonna have significant shoes to fill. So you look on a kind of two ways, right? We look at it from the perspective where maybe it's a Bob Iger type event who comes in and revolutionizes Disney, or maybe it's like when Schultz or Jobs left and the business struggles for a few years. So I think the nod, as we see, went to the head of cloud computing at Amazon. So, maybe you see that the company pivot a bit more towards that technology, cloud services. It's a more profitable business for them. So, it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out. Obviously, the numbers from Amazon have been great, but let's see how the next 12 months play out. He's got definitely huge shoes to fill.
Right.
Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah,
So what are we looking at coming into next week? What do we? Oh, we want to talk a little bit about cash and what you're looking at doing with that in people's
yeah.
accounts.
Yeah, for sure. No, it's a good point. So as the money came over, some of the short-term holdings were liquidated. So we do have a fair amount of cash. So if you go in, you're looking online and you're seeing more cash than you typically see in the portfolios, it's temporary. I've been putting it to work, been looking for the right place and the right kind of holdings that I'd like to add into the portfolio. So don't be alarmed. The plan is to get it to work. I'd expect by the end of February we should see those cash levels drop materially.
Right. So into that, then what are we looking to do this week?
Yeah, so I think it's we've seen some pretty high levels put in broad markets, and really noticing a difference between the stocks that are doing well and the stocks that aren't doing well, because you see excuse me, some big numbers like some of these tech names out of the gate are up 20-30%, or you'd have some of the other sectors that are down fairly hard. So I took advantage of energy rallying yesterday, sold energy and bought XRT, which is consumer discretionary in the US. So I continue to look for that. The market's still positioned defensively. And so with that as kind of the backdrop, when I'd look for days of selling pressure to add to portfolios. So I continue on that path because I think we're in that quad two environment where we got growth and inflation, and on top of that you get kind of this overarching narrative, which we talked about a little bit about bubbles and concerns, and people think we're late cycle. Yes, the answer is yes to all of those things, but until that narrative turns turns to the other way, which is, well, things must be great. Let's pile in, let's chase it up. Until that narrative changes, which it doesn't appear like it is short term, then I think you want to own more risk than you would typically want to own at this point of the cycle.
Hmm.
So I'm still looking for that. I mean, there's lots of, some of these, like I say, the Sally Beauty and the Michaels Company, which I bought last week, and I bought it a little bit the week before. Porsche is a company that I started a small position in, tried to get filled on the price. It didn't hit my price. So, everyone owns a little bit, but the intention is to add to that. So there's still opportunities. You look at like a company like Sally Beauty, it's still down 50% from its highs. And so I think you get that money start to come back to these kind of these consumer discretionary names that just got dumped because I think there was this fear that nobody would spend money again. And I think that fear is starting to move away, but it's not reflective yet in the stock prices.
Yeah. It looks like all the major automakers are looking to make major plays in the electronic or the electric vehicle. Right, finally going to make the push over. I wonder what that'll do ultimately to Tesla and to those companies that have just been kind of lagging for decades, really.
Mm-hmm.
Right? What's your thought on that?
Yeah, so I did buy some QuantumScape this week, which was Bill Gates' battery company. So that's kind of from a positioning perspective and a decision based on what I think long term. Like I think those companies will probably be the winners, the battery makers, and whoever can, find that magic that can produce a small, safe battery that can allow you to drive 1,000 kilometers. Like I think those companies are the winners over others. But really, like Volkswagen has made a serious push, and they sell more cars than Tesla's probably ever sold in its whole history in 1 year for Volkswagen. So, I think there'd be serious pressure on Volkswagen. My view is that Musk is a salesman. Like he's going to continue to try to weave his web and maybe pivot the company more towards solar, maybe pivot more towards other kind of technology. I think Tesla is going to be okay, but I think he's going to try to kind of weave a different story. As we saw probably last weekend, right, when he started talking about Bitcoin. So I wouldn't be shocked to see him come out and say they've put a few $100 million into Bitcoin into their portfolio. So I think he probably weaves the story a bit. As for from a pure what car companies do well, I think Volkswagen probably does well. Maybe Toyota, but GM and Ford, they got serious debt issues. Serious like pension liability issues that you don't unwind quickly. I think that it's not something I have any interest in exploring.
Yeah. What will be interesting is that by the looks of it, Apple and Hyundai are close to a deal. So that'll be interesting. Anytime Apple's involved, right? It's interesting to see what their vision is on the car of the future. And if they're close, it means they probably have a pretty clear vision. If they're close and this is coming out and they're now getting ready to announce this deal, then it looks like there's probably that would be interesting for Apple and Hyundai to see. And I wonder what more of the story will be. Is it more of the electric cars or the more of the autonomous, right? Is that what the companies like Apple that are more interested in going in that direction, right?
Sure. Yeah.
Artificial intelligence side more than it is just the electric car, because that's kind of been there, done that at this stage, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think that it's a good point, and so AI I think is certainly something that's going to be very important and relevant in the future. I think that's going to probably play out across most businesses, right? As companies look to continue to lean out their base of employees and things like that, they're going to look for ways and systems that can do work that individuals did before. So autonomous I think is I mean, I think I'd love that. That'd be great. Love to jump in the car and have somebody
Yeah.
drive me there.
Yeah.
But I think it's definitely got a ways before the governments of the world get comfortable with it.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, that's what you think, right? Like, oh, I don't even know if that'll happen in our lifetime, but the way how quickly changes now, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's hard to say how quickly that stuff will come in.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah, so I mean, I think it puts it puts serious pressure into, if you're comfortable with energy, you want commodities exposure in the portfolio based on the cycle. I think it's something you can't hang around with. Like, I think it's you're definitely dating it. You're not marrying it. You want to come in and just hold it temporarily, because I think that the business itself is certainly on a down trajectory.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we don't have any questions, which concerns me because the first few weeks we had a lot of questions both on this and
Yeah.
our look ahead one as well, live stream. So I'm gonna look into that. I don't know if there's something wrong with that, or I know Anne mentioned that she had to log in last time to do it and she still wasn't able to do it. So I'm gonna look into that live stream. We're gonna get sort of that the chat there, see what's up with that. So if there's no questions, do you have anything else, Ben, you want to mention?
I don't think so. I mean, you did. I think we wanted to mention that we are doing an interview next week in our podcast. So we want to make mention of that.
Yeah.
So yeah. So I mean, go ahead.
Yeah. No, I was just going to mention too. If you haven't seen the podcast yet, we haven't officially announced the audio version. It is up and running. We just haven't announced it. But if you want to watch any of the podcasts now, we also have the video version, which is in our channel. So you can literally just go. You're watching this on our channel right now, and there's actually a playlist called Think Podcast. So any of the ones that have that are our podcasts. So this week's will actually launch. I have it scheduled to launch on Sunday, so that'll be great.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Good. So I'm just gonna make a reference. So kind of further on to our Willing Wisdom, we had lots of questions come back to us about planning and how and what and how you should approach it. So we're interviewing a lawyer next week. And so we're going to give that chance to have a pretty thorough discussion with her about a lot of the questions and feedback that we got. And hopefully that can help and address and answer a lot of those questions for people.
Yeah, I think that one will be more tactical than the Tom Deans, right? The Tom Deans is more about the communication, the conversations you should be having with your family. And this one will be more of the tactical. What should you be looking to put in your will, and kind of like the step-by-step type thing, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, for sure. I think that's going to be awesome. Yeah. Yeah, and that lawyer that we got is really great. So awesome.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. Well, that's it for this week. Ben's gonna go and sleep for 2 days, and I'm gonna go and wrestle with my kids.
We're gonna watch some football, and we
didn't even talk about the Super Bowl.
Exactly.
Didn't even talk about that.
Yeah.
Like I mentioned before, I think who are you picking?
Yeah. I mean, listen, I was not a big Brady fan over the years, but he's won me over. Like he's, what he's been able to do completely on his back since coming to Tampa has been amazing. So I'm cheering for them.
Hey, and if he can do that at 43, just imagine what we can do when we turn 43. Right?
Exactly.
There's still hope for us, eh? We're not too old. We're not too old yet.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, everyone. Well, thanks a lot for tuning in. Happy the technology worked for the most part, and have a great week.
See ya. Thanks.